A few days ago, we witnessed an uprising on the same scale as the American Revolution. It was a huge movement on Reddit, where a lot of the major subreddits and just a generally large number of subreddits on the site all decided to go private, effectively shutting down as a way of protesting a Reddit policy change where they were going to start charging for API access. And it wasn't cheap. We're talking Scrooge McDuck level of wealth here that'd be required to keep up with the API cost. The biggest third-party developer and platform is Apollo for Reddit, and it was estimated to cost $20 million a year under the new pricing guidelines from Reddit for the API access. And all of these third-party apps and developers do need API access to exist, so since none of them can afford to shell out 20 million clams, it effectively kills third-party apps as well as some Reddit mod tools that use API access. And it was a heavily down-duded decision. The community was very upset because third-party apps are the preferred method of perusing Reddit for a lot of people. Apparently, the official Reddit app is complete fucking trash. I'm not a huge power user of Reddit, so I was ignorant to all of that. However, I always stand by my belief that if a third-party app is offering a better service than the official one, it should have the right to exist, and it's wrong to try and force them out just because you made a dog shit official app. And I'm also never, pumping my fist and celebrating a company's insatiable gluttony and greed. So I've been out here with the foam finger on the sidelines cheering and rooting for the Redditors that are striking, and it was actually wildly successful. On day one of the protest, there was like 10,000 subreddits almost that went private. They shut down, which effectively shut down Reddit for the majority of users because they couldn't generate content anymore since there wasn't any content left. Reddit is a platform that only exists because users are on it, so if the users aren't there, there's fucking nothing on Reddit. It has no purpose, no reason to exist. It's like the butter bot from Rick and Morty with no butter. So Reddit wasn't working. It was a wildly successful day one of the strike. And now we're 3 days past the initial strike, and I want to give a little post-game analysis here on where we're at. What you're looking at here is the CEO of Reddit. I've actually never seen him myself here, and he's pretty much exactly the mental image I'd have of a Reddit higher up on the food chain. It actually looks like they just typed Redditor into Midjourney and generated this image. This is the CEO, and he basically came out and said that this whole strike is a big nothing burger. It's not a big deal. It'll pass. All blowups do. And they didn't really see a huge effect on Reddit as a whole from the strikes. Now, unfortunately, I don't think a ton of people are surprised here, and this is something I mentioned in the initial video I made on the situation. There was a huge fumble here, a big fucking blunder on the chessboard opening from the Reddit protests. They gave an end date. They said, we are going dark for 48 hours. They told them when it's going to stop. So most people, myself included, understood that this wasn't going to really put the wood on the Reddit CEO or a ton of pressure to fix anything, because he'd only have to grit his teeth and bear it for 2 days, and then it goes back to business as usual. And that's exactly what he's saying with a shit-eating smile on his face. He is just saying, yeah, it's gonna blow over. We just have to go 2 days here. Oh well. And then he just brushes his shoulder off. No biggie. He banked on Reddit users being more addicted to karma than heroin. So after the 2-day protesting period, users would flock right back to the service like Disney World was opening again and Spider-Man mascots were ready for pictures. So everyone just floods right back to Reddit. And unfortunately, he's kind of right. We're past the 2-day initial protesting period, so a lot of subreddits are no longer private. But there are a ton of them that still are. There's a lot of subreddits that didn't agree with 2 days, saying that's not enough, that's not going to put enough pressure on them, he's just going to endure it and it's not going to lead to change, which I think is the right mentality. That is correct. It didn't lead to change. 2 days was not enough. So a lot of subreddits have said that they're just going to stay offline indefinitely. And a lot of them still are. So going on Reddit right now, a lot of the bigger subreddits still aren't available to access, which is actually a pretty big deal for the platform, but I guess we'll have to wait and see if they can truly stick to their guns, really test their strength and willpower, their resolve to not have a subreddit to rule over. Can the Reddit mods stand strong and truly put the pressure on Reddit and stay offline until Reddit gets rid of this API greedy change? But in the meantime, the Reddit CEO Steve Huffman is just kind of gloating and spitting in their face, saying that this whole blackout hasn't had significant revenue impact and that the company anticipates that many of the subreddits will be back online by Wednesday. Unfortunately, Steve Huffman's no Nostradamus here. He got that prediction very wrong. His Mayan calendar was off. It's now Thursday as of me making this video, and I wouldn't say most of the subreddits have come back. A large number have, but then there's still a very large number that haven't. He then said, there's a lot of noise with this one. Among the noisiest we've seen, please know that our teams are on it, and like all blowups on Reddit, this one will pass. We absolutely must ship what we said we would. The only long-term solution is improving our product. In the short term, we have a few upcoming critical mod tool launches we need to nail. He just kind of views this whole Reddit blackout as just a bunch of pesky mosquitoes buzzing around annoying him. They need to stay focused on the goal. They gotta ship out some mod tools, and they've gotta make sure they stand by what they said they'd ship out. They can't give an inch or else Redditors will take a mile. It honestly seems like this is the most exciting thing that's ever happened to him in his life, this like cyber war that he's fighting. He's living out his anime fantasies of being the protagonist. He's the general giving orders to his troops. He even went as far as to say, I'm sorry to say this, but please be mindful of wearing Reddit gear in public. Some folks are really upset and we don't want you to be the object of their frustration. He thinks that because someone's wearing Reddit gear in public, they're gonna be like stoned to death, or given a swirly in the bathroom, or a fucking atomic wedgie. Brother, I don't think there's mangled corpses of Reddit employees littering the sidewalks out in society right now. He's making it sound like wearing Reddit merch is a death sentence. It's people upset that you have made a greedy change and they're taking that power back. Your site doesn't exist without them. They know that. So they are striking, hoping that you will overturn this decision. They're not out there threatening the lives of employees or anything like that. They're frustrated at a change you are making because you are a greedy sack of shit. You're like this soulless zombie in a suit who has discovered that most people are using third-party apps because yours is trash. And you're driving them out because you know they can't afford to pay for these price changes. Like, I don't know why he's acting this way about it. Like, be careful not to wear Reddit merch. Don't let anyone see that you're a Redditor. Make sure no one smells that you're a Redditor. It could be the end of your life. It's so goofy. But it's even goofier because the whole email memo leaked, so you can actually read how he talks to his employees, and it's so fucking embarrassing. So he kicks off this internal memo by saying, "Hi, snooze." And I've never seen that word in my life. I didn't know what that word meant. I thought he had just dropped a slur in here. I had to look it up to try and piece together the puzzle and figure out what that meant, and apparently snooze are like little Reddit avatar things. So he's basically just doing what Discord used to do with Wumpus and Springle, the help support elf. He's basically just RPing, which is so fucking embarrassing. That is the most on-brand Redditor shit ever. He goes on to say, starting last night, about 1,000 subreddits have gone private. We do anticipate many of them will come back by Wednesday, as many have said as much. While we knew this was coming, it is a challenge nevertheless, and we have our work cut out for us. A number of snooze have been working around the clock, adapting to infrastructure strains, engaging with communities, and responding to the myriad of issues related to the blackout. Thank you, team. I think this perfectly highlights the problem with giving them an end date on your protest. In the memo, he's even like, yeah, we know many of them will be back by Wednesday because they told us. Like, there was just no reason to fucking put a time frame on it, like a time limit. Hey guys, we're protesting, but just for 48 hours. That's it. So, yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a 48-hour protest. That was fucking silly. Now, that number went from 1,000 subreddits going private to about 10,000, which I think is far more than he expected. However, a lot of them have come back now, but not all of them. Still a large number are down. But you can see how not seriously he took it. Like, he didn't care that much about it internally. He's just like, yeah, we knew this was probably going to come, and it's, you know, somewhat of a headache, but you guys have got this. It's not that big of a deal. Thanks, team. Good work, snooze. We do not see any significant revenue impact so far and will continue to monitor. And then he goes into what I've already covered where he's talking about how it'll blow over because everything on Reddit blows over because everyone's too addicted to the platform. They'll always come back. Then he goes in to say, the two biggest third-party apps, Apollo and RIF, along with a couple of others, said they plan to shut down at the end of the month, but we're still in conversations with some of the others. And as I mentioned in my post last week, we'll exempt accessibility-focused apps and has so far reached agreements with RedReader and Dystopia. Now, this is something that I think is worth talking about just briefly. He says that accessibility-focused third-party apps will be exempt from the pricing changes, but I think that's ephemeral. I think that's just a little band-aid here for a PR move where he's going to allow these apps that focus on accessibility to exist exempt from this price change, but only for a brief period of time. I feel like as those become more and more popular, he would start to subject them to that pricing change as well. This is just one of those things where he's trying to save face, like, these are direct competition and I don't like the developer of Apollo. We had very dirty talks. For those that don't know, Apollo and Reddit were directly communicating and things went very sour. Fucking Reddit started accusing the Apollo dev of like blackmail and a bunch of other things. Just like started throwing a bunch of feces on his face, and then eventually the Apollo dev had to come out and clear his name. So that was a whole can of worms. So this is the Reddit CEO going like, oh, those are bad actors, they're shady, but the accessibility focused third-party apps, they're fine. But I feel like that wouldn't last very long if they started to become more and more popular. He'd once again just make sure that they pay this crazy API price once they're more popular. But that's just pure speculation from a fucking dumb idiot like me. Overall, I find this whole situation pretty interesting because this is a top 10 website in the world, and the users here really have an incredible amount of power, which is uncommon in situations like this. If the users all just agree not to unprivate the subreddits, the site actually just can't function, like we saw earlier this week. So them protesting like this has actually done significant damage. Regardless of what the Reddit CEO says, the fact that people couldn't access it for like a whole day is a big deal. Like that is huge. And I think they started to notice that, which is why so many are still offline. I do hope that they overturn this decision. Like I said, I hate corporate greed like this, and I always believe that third-party apps that offer a better service should have the right to exist. So I am rooting for them here, but I am not expecting a huge change from Reddit here. I don't think they're going to go back on their decision. I think what's most likely to happen is the Reddit CEO will just install new Reddit mods and then force the subreddits to unprivate. He'll just go behind the scenes internally, flip the switch, have the subreddits go live again, get rid of the mods that were protesting, install, new mods that'll just be his little puppets that he can control, and that'll be how Reddit gets back on track. That's my theory, once again, purely speculation from a dumb idiot, but that's kind of what I'm expecting to happen. I don't see a world where they walk back this pricing model, but I really do hope they do. Like I said, I am rooting for the Redditors in this case, and just wanted to give a little update since now we're past the 48-hour protesting period, and there are still a lot of subreddits that are staying closed, which I think is great. So yeah, Reddit's not fully dead yet, but it's looking a little iffy for the future of the platform at the very least. That's about it. See ya.